All right, let's do this. Okay, thank you for being here at Movement today. It
You're
says it on
welcome.
my cue card,
Oh, you're
so
welcome.
I gotta thank you, even though I don't know where you'd be. But we'll start out with just some easy ones, just to get to know you guys more. We're just curious how you guys met and stuff. So, what were your first impressions of each other?
I like to hear what he has to say about me, so he can go first.
Um, so it's interesting because we met online. So yeah, we met online.
Via Instagram and a
Instagram.
church conference, long story short.
No, she slid in my DMs.
I
so,
slid in
man.
his
Oh!
Our marriage vows said I will consistently state that from here on out.
So when we first met on, I just thought she was like really nice, super. She's like really intentional, but she was like really nice. So my first thought online was she was nice, she's intentional, she was very responsive, and then in person I was like, dang, she looked good, and I was like, man, that matched that picture I'm looking at, yes sir. So no, in person, but even then I thought she was just like even better in person than she was online, intentional. Just nurturing, and obviously, I mean, I thought she was gorgeous, but just her personality traits, I think, stood out to me more than anything.
I thought he was a cutie with a booty. No, just kidding. No, so because we met online, I could see right away that he was good with his words. As you guys know, you hear him all the time. So that, I think, sparked good conversation. Getting to know him, got to know his heart, was able to look past the ways he tried to impress me hard, you know, because he tried. But I think that was like the biggest thing is I could see God's hand on him, and I can see what God has led him through to be who he currently was. And like the heart that you don't get to see is what I was able to see kind of right away.
That's awesome. I love how many more layers there were to that. It was just there's so much like intentionality, God's hand in his life. You guys were able to notice beyond just some surface level stuff. That's really amazing. How this next one? How have you dealt with conflict in your relationship? Because you guys had a whole different starting of it, so I can imagine it was different.
A lot of prayer. Communication is super important. So being long distance, him being in Philly, me being here in Florida, it required us to have good communication with one another, which then led into those tough moments where you're having tough conversations because it's inevitable. So I think being able to communicate effectively with one another in a way that he would understand where I'm coming from, where I'm clearly getting my feelings and emotions across, but also being sensitive to the way that he would receive what I had to say was super important. So I'm a big processor, and I am very careful with my words, especially I'm aware the impact and the gravity that words can have. And right away I knew that I had to be intentional with my words because I knew how he would receive it, and I knew that he filtered through things with like a filter of what's their motive. I might be coming for him more on the defensive side in the beginning. And so I learned like early on, like I had a responsibility to communicate things a specific way, in a loving way that he would be able to receive.
Yeah, and I think she's way better at that than I am. I'm pretty like high strung and intense, as y'all all know, and but like I think the key is like really one. She said effective communication, and that allowed us to become each other's like safe space. And I think more than anything in a relationship, like whether it was friend, but in our case, like romantically dating, we wanted the person we were with to be safe, and a safe where I can share how I felt, where she could feel how she felt, and really just kind of process through like the complications of relationship. And so I wasn't always the best at it. She's pretty. Jessica's to me is the prime example of like cool, calm, collected at like all times. Very rarely do I see her emotions spike. It's pretty just like this, and that just kind of helped us navigate how to effectively communicate. Because people say communication, but communication and effective communication are two different things. And I think we started, like, we did counseling, not because we were in a bad place, it's because the Bible tells you to seek wise counsel. So we did counsel when we first started dating. And that was one of the things they like highlighted was like, hey, you guys communicate way different. And so let's find ways that effectively help you communicate. And so it took us like just really getting to know and understanding and seeking to understand more than like getting upset. So it's something we try to
That's
practice.
really good.
Is like at least she's always been really good at it. I'm getting better at it, I think. It's just asking a lot of questions instead of assuming, so we can kind of get to the root and work together as a team towards our common goal.
That's really good. You guys, I love how you guys said basically clarity and seek understanding each other. That's really, I think that's a difference instead of trying to be understood, seeking to understand each other. It's a whole different mindset.
When he said communicating effectively, we were both in our minds like, I am communicating effectively. Like, what do you mean? How do you not understand what I'm saying? And through even pre-marriage counseling, we were able to understand that his filter and the way he was processing was completely different than the way I was. And so I had to communicate understanding how he was receiving it and interpreting everything I said, which then allowed for that more effective communication. And same vice versa. He was able to speak to me, hitting the boxes that I needed to know that I feel heard, I feel understood, and I was able to understand what he was actually saying.
That's awesome. I love it. Next question. What are some non-negotiables you have established in your relationship, and how have you gone about establishing those non-negotiables?
Really, one for me, like right off the bat, was like having a real relationship with God. So obviously we got married a little older. We were in our 30s, so we had some experience dating. And it was interesting, like how many people said they believed in God versus like they truly had a relationship with God. Like there's a clear-cut difference between the two. And so that biggest non-negotiable, like for me right off the bat, was do you have an active relationship with God? Like, and what does that look like? And one of the ways I could tell that obviously was just like how she carried herself, and the fruit of her life proved that. But that was like a big non-negotiable. And then the second one was like, for me, was just like to be a huge supporter of just kind of what was kind of going on in my life at the time. I worked for a pretty big organization at the time, and so obviously with that came a lot of eyes and came, some criticism and some different things. And so I just kind of wanted to be with somebody that also was like an encourager to me, because believe it or not, even though I'm really confident, I do like to be encouraged. Like words of affirmation are like my love language. And so those were like my two biggest: love God, and can you be an encourager and a great teammate? Like, could we work together?
One had to love me well, in the way that I know that I deserve to be loved, and that was a lot of learning for me over the years of understanding that. Two, had to love our daughter, because it was a joint package. I had a daughter coming into it, and so he had to not only love me well, but love her well. And obviously the God thing was first and foremost, because understanding that he is a man of God and seeing that he's actively pursuing God and exhibits all the qualities of somebody who has a relationship with God, those were all like super important to me. Also, he had to be okay with cooking and cleaning too, because I'm not your mama, and it's a joint effort. It is not a one-sided thing. It is not only the ladies, so that was important.
Yeah.
I do cook Monday and Tuesday.
Yes, and he does well.
I do cook well.
Hey, let's go. So within you guys meeting each other online and starting there, how did you establish boundaries in dating?
Go ahead.
Well, it was pretty, not simple, but it was, I think, easier for us being long distance. Again, it required a lot of open communication, which is super important. You're not as face-to-face, like within proximity of each other, and so that allowed us to right away establish healthy boundaries. For me, we both have experimented and done things outside of marriage before our relationship. And so I had already learned the hard way by doing it the wrong way. And so going into this, if I feel like this is a man that God has brought into my life to bless my life, to be a spouse, to be a husband to me, then I'm definitely going to do this the right way, because why would I want to jeopardize that for a fun time now when I can have a lifetime with a man that I love, seeking
That's
after
good.
God and doing everything that he's called for both of us in our purpose and our walk. So there was no way, after doing it in a toxic relationship in the wrong way, in my own way, I was choosing to do it in God's way, and we both respected that boundary with one another.
That's so good.
Yeah, she was a lot better at that. Your boy was trying to get some, so I'm just being honest. No, it's true. Like, I was like, dang, Part of that's, obviously, like she said, we had both kind of, obviously, we didn't wait till marriage, and obviously that unlocked some things in us. And so I think this is like really, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, we waited together
we
in marriage,
yeah.
but outside of our relationship, we hadn't. So.
Exactly. Thank you for
Yes.
clarifying that. And so one of the things, and I think this is like really important about being self-aware and knowing yourself. So like I knew, like this is just real, I mean, it's my youth group, so I guess I can kind of say it. I knew I had like a high sex drive, and that I was like, yo, like I wanted some. And so it's just true. And so one of the things I did, like, to really create boundaries was, one, I had an accountability. I had 2 accountability guys in my life that understood, like, how much I liked Jess. I explained to them, like, this was the person I saw having the future with. And so, like, they had full-on permission to call me whenever, wherever, to just be, and, like, I couldn't lie to them. Like, that was the agreement. Like, if I call you and I ask you how it's going, you have to tell me the truth. And so, like, I knew I needed that, not because I just think I'm some, like, savage, like, sex beast or whatever, but, no, like, I mean, it's just honest. I knew, I was like, man, I knew I needed some accountability in my life.
That's so
because I knew
good.
that was an area I'd fallen weak in before. And because I love Jess so much and I wanted to be, like, super honoring of her and super honoring of our relationship and honoring of God and doing it the right way, that was one thing. Like, I put people in my life that, one, could hold me accountable, and 2, we just, like, established that from the beginning. We're like, hey, these are the lines we're not crossing. No ifs, ands, buts are about it. And we came to, like, a for real agreement. And so one of the things we did, like, even in the beginning of our relationship, like, we went on, like, a 40-day, like, prayer journey together. Like, and just, honestly, it's this book called The Circle Maker. And for 40 days, like, we just prayed over our relationship. Like, God, keep us pure. God, send people in our life that'll hold us accountable.
That's so
even when
good.
we want to slip, like, give a check in our spirit. And then I really protected, for me, the boundaries were, like, I protected what I, like, watched and listened to. So I stopped listening to, like, a lot of R&B. I stopped, like, watching, certain things on TV. Anything that could get my mind going in that direction, I just kind of removed it from my life for that time. Because for me, I was like, I want to do everything possible to not kind of, like, get some things going in my mind that could further, like, detriment what we were building.
Yeah, that 100% makes sense. That's so good. Wow, I don't know, that hit me. Just the honesty and the realness, but of, like, this is what you want to make work. Yeah. So it's worth the hard work. It's worth the effort.
Absolutely.
I just want to add too, I feel like a lot of people don't think that they're influenced by what they listen to or by what they're watching. You might not realize it, but you 100% are. And subconsciously, like, this is ingraining something in your mind. It draws your attention to something. It's just like subliminal messages, right? So when we chose to, like, stop listening to certain music, it made such a drastic difference. I'm like, all right, I got to turn that Rihanna off, because I'm like,
I was like,
it's
work, girl, work.
It makes a difference. And so if you're trying to actively pursue it the right way, you have to be proactive in that and eliminate those possibilities for the enemy to just come in, because he didn't want that to be successful. And God will always give you an opportunity to say no and an out. And I realized all the times in my life where I chose not to, like, I ignored it, and I was like, wow, it was still there though. So every time it came knocking, I'm like, nope, we're not, because I want it to be successful.
That's really good. All right, I got one more question for you guys, and then we'll kind of wrap up and have some time for like some final closing. But what is one thing, and I like this question because I think it's just an interesting question for you guys. What is one thing you would say to these students regarding relationships if they were your son or daughter?
You know, I knew this question was coming, and so I've been kind of mulling it over all week. And obviously, I think the question hits a little different for me now because I am a father. And it actually hits me a little differently now because, like, whether you guys believe it or not, I see all of you as kind of like my surrogate children that I get to play a role in. And so I think the biggest thing, like, what I would communicate in this season of your life is, one, I would say this is like, know your worth. And that's just not like, and everybody always says that, and they always gear that towards like the female students. I'm saying that towards the male students as well. Like, know your worth.
Yeah.
Know what God says about you. Know that, like, God's called every last one of you to not be normal, to not fit the status quo, but to, like, stand out and change the atmosphere and the world around you.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is you're going to be faced with challenges because it just happens. That's just life. You're going to be faced with choices. You're going to be faced with, like, obstacles to navigate. And if there's one thing I would say is, even when it's hard, do the right thing. You never regret doing the right thing. You never regret doing the right thing. And last but not least, what I would say is, like, I'm proud of you. You know, because I grew up in a home and, like, man, I had a great upbringing. I love my parents. I love them so much. But me and her were talking about this, and I was like, you know, when I was in high school, I don't really remember my parents, actually in my entire life, I don't remember my parents saying, I'm proud of you that much. Like, I just don't remember it. And I remember, like, I was a great athlete, and I got to run college track, but the only reason I ran college track was because that was the one place I knew my dad and my mom would come and say, I'm proud of you. And so I, like, chased this thing that I didn't necessarily, like, love because I knew that's where I would give my affirmation. And so what I would say to you is, I'm proud of you. Not because you've done anything great, not because you're a great athlete or a great play instruments great or a great student. No, I'm just, like, proud of you for being you. I'm proud of you for showing up on a Wednesday. I'm proud of you for, like, no matter what, seeking to, like, grow in your relationship with Christ. I'm just proud of you. And so if no one's told you that, if you've never heard that, and you could be like, man, Pastor B, there's like 200 kids here. How do you know? Like, man, I just want you to know, like, I am proud of you. And I'm so honored that you give up 2 hours on a Wednesday night every week to come and be a part of what we're building. And I take that as an honor.
Like Pastor Brandon said, it's easier because I do have an 11-year-old daughter. And there's so many things that, like, I want to pour into her or speak into her because I know what it's like growing up, one, as a daughter, and then two, being a young girl and trying to navigate the world and friendships and relationships and everything that just encompasses, like, your life. And I think one thing that is important is to prioritize you and building that foundation with God before you try to prioritize your relationship with somebody else. Because if you're not whole, then being in a relationship with someone isn't going to complete you. And I know that sometimes people think, if I get into a relationship, now I'm like, it's everything that I need. Now I'm complete. And when I met Pastor Brandon, he didn't complete me. I was complete going into the relationship, and now he compliments me. He enhances my life. He's a blessing to me. But he didn't complete me. God completes me. And finding myself in who God says I am is so important. And it's not just for girls, it's for guys too. Like, who God says you are is more important than what society tries to convince you that you are, that your friends try to say about you, that even sometimes your boyfriends, your girlfriends try to speak into you. It's often filled with a lot of lies that are spoken over you. And the one person that won't lie to you is God. And finding your identity in him and building that foundation and that relationship is going to be carried on through the rest of your life. When I was 19, I got pregnant. Same guy I dated all through high school. I thought, oh, it would never be me. I made a lot of good choices, was with one guy, thought, I still went to church. I still was around people. But when my friends stopped going to church, I dwindled off. So I realized soon that I wasn't really here for the right reasons. Thankfully, I had people in my life praying for me and speaking into me. So I had a foundation set for when I got pregnant at 19, had a baby at 20, and now I'm a single parent at 20. And it's a lot to navigate, and I don't ever want that for my own kid. And I don't want that for any of you guys. Because sometimes it just happens in an instant. You make one poor choice and your life is altered. But you make one right choice, then your life is changed forever. And that's believing in God and building that relationship. And so, just like Pastor Brandon said, like, being proud of you guys. Be proud of yourself too. Because there's a lot of people that can be proud of you, but ask yourself, are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of the choices that you're making? Are you proud of what you're doing, what you're accomplishing? Because no one can truly see your heart except for you and God. He's going to be the one that can fill it when it's broken, that can fill those voids. Nobody else can. So work on yourself and build that relationship, that foundation, so you are complete when you do find someone that can complement and enhance you, but isn't going to complete you. So you need to be full going into that.
That's so good. As we kind of begin to wrap up, I'm just curious if we could get one just like practical encouragement on seeing, like, beginning what's a good next step for everyone to begin to pursue wholeness. And then as we do that, if you guys could, with that practical step, just pray for our young men and young women here.
So I had this thought earlier, because we obviously saw some of the questions and things stir in your mind of what am I gonna say? And I had some random thought, and we live in Florida, right? So everyone knows sunscreen. You put it on your body, you're preventing damage from your skin. And sun damage can show up 10, 20 years from now down the road. So you don't see it immediately. So we're constantly doing things to protect our skin, right? So what are you doing to protect your heart? What are you doing to protect your mind? Which kind of goes back then, what are you filling it with? Because the damage and the effects of what happened now will still resonate unless you heal from it. And so actively learning how to pray, I think, is important, because I remember the first time that I was asked to pray over someone out loud, I was like, what? You pray out loud? That's weird. And I was 21. So learning how to pray, learning how to do devotion, learning how to journal, those are all practical ways that you can start to understand God's word and understand what he's trying to say to you. And one for me that always is it's always reliable, worship music. Turn it on and just be in the presence of what his word is saying about me, what it's saying about who God is, and how much I'm loved. So if anything fails, I know I can at least turn to that. If I don't have the words to say and I don't know what to think, then I allow it to flow through me in song.
So obviously, I knew this was coming. It was my idea. And so I've been in this season where I'm really just trying to dig deeper in God's word. And I shared this with the discipleship group. I've been in this space of finding God's compassion and kindness and love. And how do I become more like Jesus? And as I've been kind of diving, I feel like there's a lot of things in the Bible, but I feel like Galatians 5 kind of gives us a bright picture. So I'm going to read a couple scriptures. Galatians 5, I'm going to start at verse 19. It says, when you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outburst of anger, selfish ambition, dissension, division, envy, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these. But let me tell you again, as I have before, that anyone living that sort of life will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have nailed the passions and desires of their sinful nature to his cross and crucified them there. Since we are living by the Spirit, let us follow the Spirit's leading in every part of our lives. Let us not become conceited or provoke one another or be jealous of one another. And so the reason why I share that is really, I think Galatians 5 gives us two prime examples of what it's like of your life when you follow Jesus and when you don't. And I think that those fruits of the Spirit, the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness, the goodness, the faithfulness, the gentleness, and the self-control should be encouraging enough that it encourages me to say yes to him. Because who doesn't want more of those things? Who doesn't want more kindness? Who doesn't want more joy? Who doesn't want more love? Who doesn't want more peace? Who doesn't want more patience? Who doesn't want more kindness? Who doesn't want more goodness? Like, who doesn't want those things? And in an era and a generation where anxiety is at an all-time high, depression's at an all-time high, sex outside of marriage is at an all-time high, worthlessness is at an all-time high. Why? And you've tried everything else to fix that problem. Why not try Jesus for real? Why not try him seriously like you tried Molly? Seriously like you tried your vape? Seriously like you tried porn? Seriously like you tried everything else? But it feels like when we come to Jesus and we give him such a short leash. And so my encouragement would be, give him a fair shot. Give Jesus 40 real days, and I bet you your life will change and you'll never go back. Like, give him 40 real days. And then after that, give him 40 more. And then give him 40 more. And I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but I'm saying it's going to be so much better than anything else you've ever experienced. So that's my encouragement, is don't give up on Jesus. Don't let Jesus be the one with the short leash in your life. Give him space and grace to operate the way he wants to operate in your life, and I guarantee it'll change it.